Imagine a queen once celebrated, now lying in a darkened room, her breath shallow, her heart racing, not from illness alone, but from a fear so deep it clings to her like a shadow. What could terrify a woman who survived the treacherous court of Henry VIII, a king notorious for discarding wives with a flick of his quill or a swing of the axe? In her final hours, Anne of Cleves, the fourth wife of England's most infamous monarch, faced something far more chilling than death itself. Was it betrayal, a hidden enemy, or a secret she carried to her grave? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will change how you see this forgotten queen forever. Anne of Cleves wasn't supposed to be a footnote in history. Born in 1515 in Düsseldorf, in what's now Germany, she grew up in a modest court, far from the glittering halls of London. Her father, Duke John III of Cleves, ruled a small but strategic duchy, and Anne was raised with a practical education, languages, music, needlework, but no illusions of grandeur. She wasn't a princess destined for a crown. She was a pawn in a political chess game. In 1539, at 24, she was chosen to marry Henry VIII, a man 24 years her senior, whose reputation for volatility was already whispered across Europe. Henry needed an alliance to counter the Catholic powers of France, and Spain and Cleves, with its Protestant leanings, was the perfect partner. But Anne, she had no say in the matter. Picture her crossing the stormy English Channel, a young woman who'd never left her homeland, now sailing toward a king who'd already buried 2 wives and divorced another. The stories of Catherine of Aragon's exile, Anne Boleyn's execution, and Jane Seymour's death in childbirth must have haunted her. Yet Anne carried herself with quiet dignity, her plain face and sturdy frame belying a sharp mind. When she arrived in England, Henry, impatient to meet his bride, disguised himself and rode to Rochester to surprise her. The encounter was a disaster. Henry, expecting a radiant beauty, found Anne's appearance unremarkable. He later complained she looked like a Flanders mare, a cruel jab that stung more for its public airing than its truth. Anne, unaware of the insult at the time, greeted him politely, her limited English masking her confusion. The marriage, solemnized on January 6, 1540, was doomed from the start. Henry claimed he couldn't consummate it, blaming Anne's appearance, though historians suspect his own health, ulcerated legs, obesity, and possible impotence, played a larger role. Anne, for her part, endured the humiliation with grace. She didn't rage or plead when, just 6 months later, Henry demanded an annulment. Instead, she agreed, signing the papers that declared their marriage invalid. In return, she was granted a generous settlement, manors, estates, and the title King's beloved sister. Most importantly, she kept her head. Unlike Anne Boleyn or Catherine Howard, she walked away alive. But survival didn't mean safety. Anne settled into a comfortable life in England, outliving Henry and his 5th and 6th wives. She lived quietly at Hever Castle and other estates, hosting feasts, managing her lands, and staying clear of court politics. To the outside world, she was the lucky one, a queen who escaped Henry's wrath and thrived. Yet as she approached her 40s, something shifted. By 1557, Anne's health began to fail. She was 41, not old by today's standards, but in the 16th century illness could strike swiftly. What was it that made her final hours so terrifying? To understand, we need to step into the world she inhabited, a world of superstition, betrayal, and unseen dangers. In the summer of 1557, Anne was residing at Chelsea Manor, a grand house gifted to her by Henry. She'd been feeling unwell for weeks, complaining of pains in her chest and stomach. Her servants, loyal but untrained in medicine, could offer little beyond herbal remedies and prayers. The Tudor era wasn't kind to the sick. Doctors relied on outdated theories, like balancing the body's humours through bleeding or purging, often doing more harm than good. Anne, educated and pragmatic, likely distrusted such treatments, but she had no choice. As her condition worsened, she was confined to her bedchamber, the heavy curtains drawn against the July heat. Now let's pause and imagine what it was like for her. You're Anne, lying in that four-poster bed, the air thick with the scent of lavender and wax. Your body aches, your strength fading, but your mind is sharp. You've survived a king who could have killed you, navigated a foreign court and built a life on your own terms. Yet here you are, vulnerable, surrounded by shadows. The fear creeping in wasn't just about death. Everyone in Tudor England expected to meet their maker sooner or later. No, this was something else, something personal. One possibility was betrayal. Anne had enemies, even if they weren't obvious. Her annulment had humiliated Henry, and while he was long dead by 1557, his daughter, Queen Mary I, now ruled. Mary, a devout Catholic, distrusted Protestants, and Anne, raised in a Protestant-leaning family, was a potential target. Rumours swirled that Mary resented Anne's wealth and independence. Could someone in Anne's household, a servant, a physician, have been bribed to hasten her end? Poison was a common weapon in Tudor courts, its symptoms mimicking natural illness. Arsenic or belladonna could cause the very pains Anne reported, and she, with her keen instincts, might have suspected foul play. The thought of a trusted face hiding malice would have been chilling. Another fear was spiritual. The 16th century was steeped in superstition. Death wasn't just a physical end, it was a journey to judgment. Anne, caught between Protestant and Catholic worlds, faced uncertainty. Her family in Cleves leaned Protestant, but England under Mary was fiercely Catholic. Had she conformed enough to Catholic rituals to secure her soul? Or did she worry that her compromises, attending Catholic masses to avoid trouble, had angered God? The Tudors believed in omens, and a sudden illness could be seen as divine punishment. As Anne lay dying, every creak of the manor, every flicker of candlelight, might have felt like a warning. Her isolation compounded these fears. Anne had no husband, no children, no close family in England. Her brother, Wilhelm, was far away in Cleves, and her mother had died years earlier. Her household staff, while devoted, couldn't fill the void. She'd outlived most of her contemporaries from Henry's court, including Catherine Parr, who died in 1548. Loneliness can amplify fear, and for Anne, the absence of a confidant to share her burdens must have been suffocating. Did she lie awake, wondering if her life's choices, her compliance, her silence, had led her to this solitary end? Let's dive deeper into those final days. By early July 1557, Anne's illness was critical. Her servants sent for a physician, likely one approved by Queen Mary's court. Tudor medicine was a gamble. Remedies like mercury or lead-based potions could be toxic. If the physician suggested bleeding, Anne might have resisted, knowing it. Could weaken her further. But refusal wasn't easy. Defying a doctor could raise suspicions of heresy or disloyalty, especially for a foreign ex-queen. The tension in that room must have been palpable. Anne, too weak to argue, watching a stranger handle her fate. The historical record is vague about her exact illness. Some sources suggest cancer, possibly stomach or breast given her symptoms, and age. Others point to a fever, common in an era without sanitation. Whatever the cause, Anne's decline was rapid. By July 16th, she was slipping in and out of consciousness, her body racked with pain. Yet her mind, when lucid, was active. She dictated her will, a remarkable act of clarity for someone so ill. In it she left generous bequests to her servants, requested burial in Westminster Abbey, and asked for masses to be said for her soul, a nod to Catholic tradition, perhaps to appease Mary. This will offer a glimpse into her character. Even at death's door, Anne was practical, ensuring her household would be cared for. But it also hints at her fear. Why the urgency to settle her affairs? Did she sense her time was unnaturally short? Poison, if used, would have been subtle, its effects indistinguishable from disease to untrained eyes. Anne, who'd navigated Henry's court, knew how power worked. A queen, even a former one, was never truly safe. As night fell on July 16, 1557, Chelsea Manor grew quiet. Anne's breathing grew fainter, her hands cold. Her servants knelt by her bedside, praying in Latin, their voices a soft murmur against the silence. Did she hear them? Or was her mind elsewhere, back in Cleves with her mother's laughter, or in the grand halls of Hampton Court, where she'd once stood as queen? The terror of those final hours wasn't just physical. It was the weight of a life lived under scrutiny, the fear of being forgotten, the dread of what lay beyond. Anne died in the early hours of July 17, 1557. She was 41. Her death was recorded as natural, and Queen Mary granted her a lavish funeral at Westminster Abbey, a rare honor for a non-royal. To the world, Anne's story ended peacefully, but the truth, as we've explored, is far darker. Her final hours were a battle against pain, suspicion, and existential dread. She wasn't just fighting illness, she was grappling with the ghosts of her past and the uncertainty of her legacy. Why does this matter to us centuries later? Anne's story resonates because it's human. She wasn't a martyr like Joan of Arc or a villain like Elizabeth Bathory. She was a woman who played the hand she was dealt, surviving a ruthless king and a brutal era. Her fears, betrayal, isolation, mortality are ours too. In a world obsessed with power and fame, Anne reminds us that even the lucky ones face their demons alone. Her life also challenges our assumptions. We picture Tudor queens as glamorous or tragic, but Anne was neither. She was resilient, adaptable, a survivor who thrived in exile. Yet her end shows how fragile even the strongest among us can be. Her terror wasn't in flames or the scaffold. It was in the quiet, in the dark, in the questions no one could answer. Let's reflect on what we've learned. Anne of Cleves wasn't just Henry VIII's forgotten wife. She was a diplomat, a survivor, a woman who carved out a place in a hostile world. Her final hours, steeped in fear, reveal the cost of that survival. They remind us that history isn't just dates and names. It's people with hopes, regrets, and fears as real as our own. So what can we take from this? Maybe it's a call to look closer at the stories we think we know, to question the happy endings and seek the truth beneath. Anne's life asks us to be curious, to empathize, to remember that every name in a history book was once a person, lying awake, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt a moment of fear that made you question everything like Anne might have? Share it in the comments. I read everyone and I'd love to know your thoughts. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who loves history as much as you do. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Trust me, you've never heard a tale quite like this one. Speaking of what's next, our next video dives into a story so brutal it'll leave you speechless. Guy Fawkes' torture was brutal beyond belief, uncovers the unimaginable pain behind one of history's most infamous traitors. You think you know the gunpowder plot? Think again. Hit subscribe and I'll see you there.